Since 1887's publication of A Study in Scarlet, each generation has fallen in love with the Sherlock canon, whether it be through films, books, or theatre, or whatever medium. There are societies across the world, and these Sherlockians have published essays, journals, articles, pastiches, and stories, and it is into these I dig and present, as they deserve a wider audience and appreciation. In each episode, we will look at a different aspect of the Sherlock Holmes world. I'm Steve, and since I had the Sherlock Holmes tales read to me as bedtime stories, I've been an ardent fan. After Arthur Conan Doyle's death in 1930, that seemed the end of the canonical Sherlock. But fans of Sherlock knew there would always be pastiches, fan fiction, and they could always go back to the warm cuppa that was the original canon. But then, a completed Sherlock Holmes story was found in 1942 by a Doyle biographer. This was Keith Pearson, and while searching through a box of Doyle's papers working on an authorised biography of Conan Doyle, he printed the beginning of the story and commented on it in his biography of Conan Doyle, His Life and Art. It was originally announced that the story would not be published by the Doyle estate. This was no doubt due to the paper and circulation restrictions caused by World War II. The Strand magazine published extracts from it in August 1943, and it was finally published after demand from Sherlock Holmes societies and notable Baker Street irregulars such as Edgar Smith, Vincent Starrett, and Anthony Butcher, who raised a hue and cry for the story to be published. The Doyle estate allowed publication in August 1948 edition of America's Cosmopolitan magazine, which featured The Last Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the Man Who Was Wanted. In the UK, the Sunday Dispatch published the story in January 1949. The story divided Sherlockians, some who thought it inferior to Arthur Conan Doyle's work, some even believing it was a forgery from Adrian. And after this story was published and all the newspapers commented on it, the story's origins revealed itself. On the 2nd of January 1949, Keith Pearson sent a letter to Vincent Starrett, telling him that an architect named Arthur Whittaker claimed he'd written the story about 35 years earlier and had sent a copy to Conan Doyle. Doyle gave him 10 guineas for the right to use the plot, which he never did. The typewritten manuscript was stored away with the author's papers, to be found by Pearson years later. Since the story had been published under Conan Doyle's name, Whittaker wanted the truth out. He wrote to Dennis Conan Doyle, telling him the story behind the story. "It's quite simple, really," said Mr. Whittaker. "In 1911, I was a young architect, married, and living in Barnsley. I thought I might earn a little more money by writing detective stories, so I wrote 5 or 6. One was called The Man Who Was Wanted. I sent it to Arthur Conan Doyle, asking him whether he ever collaborated in the story writing, and would he like to collaborate with me. He replied that the story was not bad, but he did not collaborate. He sometimes paid 10 guineas, however, for an idea he later worked up in his own way. He advised me to change the names in the story and get it published myself. However, I accepted the 10 guineas and he retained the typescript, and that's all there is to it really." Both Doyle brothers replied that there wasn't a shred of evidence and the estate would sue for damages for anybody casting aspersions upon our manuscript. Adrian added that the estate's lawyers have demanded evidence from Whittaker's claim, and if none were provided, they would sue Whittaker and Pearson if they spread falsehoods about the news story. Adrian had declared war on a befuddled Whittaker, who actually thought he was doing the estate a favour by not remaining quiet with British publication upcoming. Whittaker, however, had a copy of the story and also Arthur Conan Doyle's letter of reply, and at a meeting in February 1949 between lawyers for both sides, the estate acknowledged the validity of Whittaker's claim. The estate paid Whittaker £150, a pittance of the reported US monies they had received, of which £21 went to his legal expenses. The Sunday Dispatch did run an article on February 27th, 1949, admitting the discovery of the Conan Doyle was not the author's story. But the Cosmopolitan never did, nor did the estate refund their payments. If you want to hear this story, check out Greg Waghorn's YouTube channel, Magpie Audio Sherlock Stories, or find the link in today's show notes. Having read the story myself, I enjoyed it, and I think it's easy to forget some of the poorer stories in the original canon when comparing it against it. Decide for yourself. Arthur Whittaker died in 1949, and he certainly left us with an interesting story, or two stories, so to speak. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you want to hear more, click on subscribe and you'll get notifications for further episodes. I've been Steve. Bye bye.